This is the first album from Mac that has been released since his death, all the way back in September 2018. And it is part of a dual series of albums that he was planning on releasing together to make basically like a full story. The first one being Swimming, which he actually released in August 2018, just a month and 4 days before his death. Since then, there hasn't really been much news about music that was meant to be released from the Mac Miller camp, and it was only a few weeks ago that it was revealed that Jon Brion, who was actually working with Mac on Swimming, had been given permission to release this by the family. I have somewhat mixed views on posthumous albums, simply because on one side, yes, we get to hear the stuff that the artist was working on and where they were planning on going, but on the other side, it's sort of a thing of a lot of the stuff is unlikely to be finished and to the full capability that the artists themselves would have probably wanted it to be at. Since this was meant to be a continuation of Swimming, I sort of had quite high hopes of it, because Swimming was one of my favourite albums of 2018. So I had relatively high expectations, high hopes, and I knew what I wanted to hear. Usually I'd say, between two albums you'd want to see an artist to develop and grow and blossom, but in this sense this was made pretty much at the exact same time as Swimming, so that's not something that I would really expect from this album. The teaser tracks that were released in anticipation of this album were really good. Surfing and Good News. Good News was amazing, it floored me. So yeah, I had very, very big expectations going into this. The album has a very conversational feel to it. It feels like we're just sat talking to Mac himself. This is emphasized with all of the wells and the yeahs that he uses throughout the entire album. And also you can sense that as the album goes on, it seems like Mac gets more and more confident. But whenever he's struggling to express himself, that's when those things still come back and creep up. And he's still struggling to properly express himself. The similarities between this and Swimming are obviously extremely similar. They've got similar vocal sounds, very similar patterns in the rhythms and the beats, although this does seem a bit more drum bass than Swimming was. Swimming was very heavily reliant on the synths and the pianos and everything that was played on that. This one, there's a lot more drums, there's a lot more bass, so that's what I do enjoy about it. But there's also obviously the clear parallels and the sort of connecting tissue, as Jon Brion called it, in saying that some of the rhythms and some of the beats are actually recycled from Swimming. The outro from Woods on this record is actually the exact same as the outro on So It Goes, which was the last song on Mac Miller's Swimming, which just shows how they are connected and how they are meant to be seen as one and the same, swimming in circles, essentially. The album as a whole is very simplistic, it's minimalistic, it doesn't rely on flashy beats or flashy lyrics or anything like that. It's very simple, grounded, down to earth, and that is personified greatly throughout the entire song, throughout the entire album. And I feel like one of the best examples is actually, ironically, the song Complicated. The lyrics are very simple, the structure is extremely simple, very poppy structure to the entire song, but yet everything is simple, but it's effective, it does its job, and there's not really much else to go on from that. It's just a really good, solid track. The album is extremely reflective on Mac and his mental state, his life, especially looking at his relationships, the things that he's gone through, his coping mechanisms, and that is salted throughout the entire thing. Every single song in here is a reflective song, just to sort of put you in the mood, and the instrumentals do a great job of also putting you into that mind state of, okay, you're listening, you're relaxing. Those instrumentals are fantastically layered on top of each other, the instruments are brilliantly put together, the mixing is really good throughout pretty much the entire record. I find it really good to know that Mac is actually the person that played almost all these instruments. Jon Brion, who was effectively the executive producer, didn't have too much say. He stepped back a bit on this record and just saying, okay, yes, you can do this, you can do that, allowing Mac to sort of express himself. Everything here is made for Mac because it was made by Mac. However, I feel as there is a positive and a negative to that, because a lot of the songs do have really long outros. A lot of them aren't really necessary. They are there to sort of let you reflect and on the lyrics of the song. And personally, I don't think you need that much time on reflecting, because there's some songs where you could have 20-30 seconds of just instrumental, and it does sort of ruin a bit of the vibe, because you want to move on to the next track and get to the next message, because maybe in that song there wasn't too much to digest. But it's also quite an effective tool, because if you listen to Good News, it's an amazing track, very deep, very introspective. You can really see Mac's viewpoint of the world in that, and how he sees that people always want to see him when he's happy, but whenever he's actually succeeding in life, that's when people are unsettled, are uncomfortable with his success. So yeah, that sort of hypocrisy and that is how Mac viewed the world, and we've got to respect that. That's just how he saw things in the world. To a certain extent, I agree with him. Whenever you are down, people want to try helping you up, but whenever you're really flying high, that's when people want to put you back down, or they're not happy with the success that you've got. The instrumental at the end of Good News is perfect. It's made for you to just sit and sort of bathe in how perfect this song is, how sad and depressing the entire song is. And you can't help but really just tear up and sort of feel sorry for him, because he's expressing himself, he's opening up. He's literally a flower opening up and expressing everything that he's got. And it's so beautiful and so depressing at the same time. There's just so much to encounter and so much to tackle in that song, that you sort of get into his mindset, you get into his head, and you know that things weren't good for him at that point, things weren't great, but he is trying to move forward. He's trying to push through the difficulties that he's been through. He's trying to push through all the challenges that he's having to face, all the adversity. And it's an empowering but very sad and lonely song. The album isn't perfect though. There are some songs where it feels like Mac is basically drowning in the instruments that are around him, and drowning in everything, all the noise, all of the disruption. For instance, on Blue World, he is sort of overpowered by this really heavy and repetitive bass drum. The song Everybody is another example of this, where Mac is being overpowered by sort of this lounge jazz instrumental in the background. And even though I feel as if this is a very good song, even though it's just a cover, and I think it's better than the original song, it does feel as if I've just gone to a jazz show to watch the band perform, and they've just got a supporting act in a singer who's just gone up to perform. I feel like Mac is hiding behind the instrumentals, he's hiding behind everything else that is around him. One of the weakest songs on this album is I Can See. I Can See is actually one of the only songs, if not the only song on the album, where Jon Brion didn't actually know about the song. He only discovered the song in the plethora of all of Mac's singles that were unreleased. So it's basically him just putting on a little bit of finishing touches here and there of what Mac probably would have wanted, and putting the song on the album. The album probably could have been a bit better if that song was to be removed. I don't mind it as a song, but if every single song on this entire record was of the similar quality, it wouldn't be great. That's how I'm just looking at it. I feel as if it's a decent song, but it doesn't live up to the rest of the songs in this album. The last two tracks of this album, Surf and Once a Day, are two amazing tracks. They're two songs that really, you can say, expose Mac Miller as a person, expose his inner demons, his thoughts, and everything about him. With Surf especially, it's as if I'm just sat next to Mac Miller in a cafe, just a friend, we're just talking, and he's expressing anything and everything that he can, all of his deepest thoughts, all of his regrets, all of his emotions. He's just pouring them all out on me and sort of having like that friendly therapy that people have. The second verse of Surf is very revealing. It basically puts everything out there, and yeah, it's very simplistic like the rest of the album, but it's so powerful. Saying that Mac feels more alone when he's around other people rather than whenever he's genuinely alone is such a powerful saying, and the way that he performs it, the way that he delivers those lines, it did almost send shivers down my spine. To finish the album off on Once a Day, and which is a very uplifting and powerful message, not only to his fans or to you as a friend whenever you're talking to him, but also to everybody else, to sort of say, hey, this is what I've been through, and these are the little tips that I can give you to sort of get through these issues, these problems that you're going through. They won't last forever. And I think that is extremely powerful, and probably the best song you can put as a last song. And it is, in my opinion, the perfect goodbye song for this album, perfect goodbye song for Mac's life, and a great way to celebrate what he was about. As a whole, I don't think this record is as good as Swimming was, but it's one that I believe will grow on you as time goes on. The more you listen to it, the more you'll get into it, the more you'll appreciate these little things that you've missed, and I feel as if the more things you go through in life, the more you will understand some of the issues and topics and lines that Mac brings up in this album. For me, it would probably be up there for a blonde level album. Not in the sense of its actual quality, but in the way that you can relate to it. You can sit down, you can cry, you can do whatever, but it's very emotional, it's very personal. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the album and everything about Circles. Obviously, like, share, subscribe, do all of that. And yeah, I will see you again next time. Mark Miller, Circles.